We are very, very pleased today to have a special guest with us here at KU. Barbara Jean Huffman was born in Tucson, Arizona, and then spent most of her young life growing up in San Francisco before she turned south and went to Los Angeles to then become Barbara Eden. Welcome, Barbara. So you're are you a Jayhawk fan?
Rock Shock Jayhawk, hey-yo! My husband graduated from KU.
And, you know, I also forgot to tell you that this was Barbara's idea to come and talk with you today. So it was really generous of her to spend some time with us. So I want to just, well, by the way, I really, really enjoyed your memoir. It was beautiful, and we got a little Genie bottle for you.
Thank you.
So when you were young, your mother...
Younger.
Your mother, and you used to sing all the time,
yes,
right? And
yes.
You started as a singer.
Well, my grandfather was a singer. He was with the first San Francisco Opera Company.
Okay.
Small parts, as he used to say. So he always sang around the house, and my mother also did, and as did I when I'd help her do the dishes. Yeah, and that's really what started me.
So one day, your mother was listening to you sing, and she said, Barbara Jean, you're getting all the notes right. They sound beautiful, but the words don't mean anything to you.
Yeah.
So I think you should take acting lessons. Is that correct?
That is correct, yes.
So tell us about that.
Well, I'd been studying at the conservatory in San Francisco, and I was a lyric soprano, and yeah, every note was right on, but no emotion at all. And so I did study. That was when I was at City College, actually. I took lessons with a woman named Elizabeth Holloway in San Francisco because my mother had heard Carol Channing on a radio interview talking about Elizabeth. She studied with Elizabeth and got her start with her. So I would take night lessons with Elizabeth, and Elizabeth said, quit City College. She said, you should concentrate on what you're going to do and make your living, where you're going to make your living. And so I did, and I studied with her, and it was the best thing that could have happened to me.
What kinds of things did she teach you?
Well, first of all, I think the most important thing for me was she got me out of myself. Her words to me were, Barbara, you're very mannerly. You know your manners. You're a nice little girl. But she said, you've got to leave that behind. You really do. You have to meet people and let them see the real Barbara, not just the please and thank you and hello, that kind of thing. And she worked on that with me. And one of the ways was, as we were discussing, there was a Miss San Francisco contest. And if anything can really, her words used to be, you should be naked in front of an audience and not be upset about it. You're just there. She meant emotionally, you know, but so she said, why don't you try for it? And I said, I can't. I'm not, you know, first of all, 5'3", that's not going to work. And she said, go, just do it. It would be very good for you to stand in a bathing suit in front of an audience. So I did it. And
you won.
Well, yeah. It was a miracle. I didn't win Miss California, though, you know that.
But you got Miss Congeniality.
Miss Congeniality. I mean, but it did help me. It helped me a lot. It broke through that little crust, you know, that you have to break through. She also said that in San Francisco, of course, there weren't many auditions, but whenever there's an audition, go an audition, whether you're right for it or not, and whether just get used to the stage, get used to presenting yourself to people. And I did that. And I didn't tell you this. I was
Please do.
I was lucky enough to get one. Small part. It was the I think L.A. Light Opera was up there. That was when I was still a soprano, and I was in high school actually. No, I was in high school. This was before. I guess I studied with her in high school before I went to the. I was at the conservatory in high school, and then I went to City College, and then she said, "Quit." That's right. Get everything right here, because I was in high school, and I remember standing on the stage after I had sung my song to this very black pit, and this disembodied voice came out and said, "Let's see your legs." So I pull my skirt up a little. He says, "No, higher." Pull it up a little higher. Woo! And then the stage manager came over to take my name and my address and phone number, and I gave it to them, and I said, but I'm not 18. I'm not 18. I was there really under false colors because they didn't want to tutor anyone, and it was a very small part. But those were the kinds of things that she would say to do so that you would learn your place on the stage. I wish I could remember that man's name. She also, we'd always go to every single play or every matinee that was playing just to see how people worked and what they did. And there was a wonderful man appearing in a show called Kismet. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but it's, I did it subsequently on television with Jose Ferrar as Haj. But this was the original Haj on Broadway. Glorious voice. The sexiest man I had ever seen in my life. I sat in that audience and I was just in love with him. And I went, as Miss Holloway said, I went backstage and said, "I'm a theater student." And I walked into his dressing room, and this man who was so glorious on stage was standing there. He had taken his toupee off, and he had a girdle on. He was also up to my nose. And he was beautiful. But as you said, the magic of
the theater and the presence of the actor on stage.
Yes, oh, he was wonderful. He was wonderful. I have also a book written by Michael Redgrave, and it's called An Actor on Acting. And it's a series of talks he gave both here and at Oxford in London. He did a series for theater students, and then he did a series for theater students plus the audience from outside. And whenever I'm working and I need a touchstone, I need something to wake me up, I'll take that book. I think it's out of print. I don't think you can get it, but if you can, you'd love it. It tells you just about everything you need to know to be an actor. And and he said it so clearly and so beautifully.
And you love to read, don't you? You've
Yeah, I
always
do.
been a voracious
I like
reader.
to read, yeah. Mm-hmm.
And that keeps you just present. What are you reading right now? Uh-oh.
I read a lot of mysteries,
So do
thrillers.
I.
Do you?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I like to, escapism is really, yeah.
So, before moving to Los Angeles, you saw a psychic.
I did.
And she
It's
told you.
interesting. Yeah. It was, one of my teachers, actually a coach, Edna Fisher, said, "You should see Emma Nelson Sims." I said, "Why?" She said, "I just think you should see her. She's told me that you should see her." And so I did. I went to see her, and she was wonderful. She was very practical and told me as Miss Holloway did. Hop out of the nest. You're too comfortable. Go either to New York or to Los Angeles, but get going.
But she also said, you're going to make your name in television.
Yes, she did. She did. And at the time, I was much more interested in being a singer and doing musical theater. And I said, but I want to sing. She said, you'll sing. And I said, well, what about film? You know? She said, oh, you'll do film. But she said, actually, your home is television.
So
Yeah.
Bill Shatner says that he is defined by Captain Kirk. And he's okay with that. He's good with that. And you even say at the end of your book, you know, okay, Jeanie defined me. And if it's a nice person to, or at least I'm going to be known for Jeanie.
Well, isn't it wonderful that once in your career you can play something that connects with so many people? I mean, it's rare that an actor has a part like that. No matter whether you like it or don't like it, or if it's your taste or not, it's still, you know that you're appreciated, and that's the best feeling in the world, really.
So you've done Las Vegas, television, film, live stage, musical theater. What's the difference in all of them?
Well, the difference is the technique. For Las Vegas, for instance, I had to learn that I didn't have a character shielding me. It was Barbara. I had to learn to talk in one, in between songs. I could lose myself in the song and the story of the song, but in between, I had to talk to the audience. And it took a while. That's the most difficult thing, I think, for an actor, unless you're a stand-up.
Do you remember what you would talk about? I'm teaching cabaret acts right now in my musical theater class. So.
I don't remember
The
now.
banter, is it?
I don't remember now. No, I don't remember.
That's okay.
It was a long time ago.
So you also say that you know, doing a sitcom, it's like 12, sometimes 14-hour days. Take us through a day on a set of a sitcom.
Oh, if you're the lead in the sitcom, yeah. Well, I'll tell you Jeanie, because Jeanie was the most taxing, because I had that thing on the top of my head. So I had to come in 3 hours earlier than the men did to have that put on, and then the body makeup. Luckily, it was a very comfortable costume, though, and I had relatively flat heels. So I was able to hop around, and I wasn't uncomfortable in it once it was on. But it took a long time to get ready. And then we'd start shooting about 8 a.m. And if we were lucky, we'd be finished at 6. And then I'd drive home. And study my lines for the next day.
Next day.
Yes.
And how did they do all the tricks? I mean, with Jeanie, you know, there had to be special.
Oh, there were. There were. You mean the blinking people in and out and all the. Yeah. And then it was pretty physical too. One time I was in a giant bottle, and Larry and Bill broke for lunch. And I was in water up to here in the bottle. I was playing the bad Jeanie, so it was okay to be. So they left. They just left me. They walked off the set, and I'm in this bottle. I can't get out. The crew left. They left. Rats. Rats.
Some favorite film roles? Favorite film leading men?
Oh, I had so many. They were cute.
Yeah.
I no favorites there.
Elvis?
Elvis was delightful. He was a lovely, lovely guy. Very nice man. A gentleman. He was, I think, the only actor I've ever worked with that when I'd come on the set, he'd immediately get out of his chair, stand up, and get me a chair. That doesn't happen. Doesn't happen when you're working, girls. But he was lovely, and he had some men with him who had their, guitars, and they would sing in between setups. When you're doing feature films, it's kind of wonderful because you have lots of rehearsal, and in between, the actor has time to rest because they're setting the lights. They're much more careful. Television, it's bang, 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 bang. You know it. And that film I just finished was horrible. I just finished a film with Sally Kellerman in Minnesota, and she called it guerrilla movie making. And it was very low budget. And generally, when you work with a cameraman and you're doing a film, you don't have to think about facing your audience or where you are on the stage, because they're doing the work for you with the camera. But with this film, we'd do the first shot, and I'd think, okay, where's that camera going now? Because 9 times out of 10, neither one of us, you couldn't see our faces. We were talking to avoid. It was interesting. It's what you call a learning experience.
What other leading men do you remember? Can you tell us about?
Oh,
You had a short scene with Paul Newman once.
Paul Newman, yes. I was terrified because I was, under contract to Fox at the time. And I had never worked with anyone like him. I was such a fan. And I wanted to do it right. And also, a director had seen me in a play, The Voice of the Turtle, at the Laguna Playhouse, and had brought me to Fox, and he put me in this film, and so I really wanted to do things correctly. And it was just a little scene, but we were dancing, and I looked at Paul and I said, "How do you want me to do this?" No, I didn't. I just didn't know, how do you want me to do this? He says, just do it. He said, just do it. So I did. But he was darling. He said, that's a good do it.
And your stand-in was also a stand-in for someone very, very famous as well.
Oh, yes.
Would you mind telling us that story?
Not at all. My stand-in was Evelyn Moriarty. And I had done while I was at Fox, I had done a series called How to Marry a Millionaire, which was based on a film done by Marilyn Monroe, and I played the Marilyn Monroe part. You'll never see it because it's black and white, so they'll never rerun it. But Evie was one of the stand-ins for the three of us, the 3 women in the show. And then when I started doing feature films at Fox, she went with me as my stand-in. And in between my movies, she got a job with Marilyn Monroe. And she was thrilled, of course, kept her working all year. So, and I was thrilled because when we just seemed to time it right. Marilyn's were much longer, of course, but Evie would come back with all kinds of stories. And Evie would tell me, she said, "Well, Barbara, I have to go work with my other star." That's how she was. Very blonde, big brown eyes. She had to have been 65, but she looked like she was 40. She was just adorable. And so it was always my other star. I'm going to go see my other star, And so one time we were working on an Irwin Allen film, and I had about a week more to do on it. And Evie came to me and said, "I have to leave." I said, "Why? We have another week." He said, No, Barbara, my other star needs me." And I said, "Why? I need you." She said, and she said, "Oh no, honey, you don't need me. She needs me." Like that. So Evie left, and during that week or two that I had left on the film, Evie, they were doing wardrobe and hair tests on the next stage. And at Fox, the next stage is like a mile away. They still have the great big old-fashioned sound stages. And she was on the next sound stage. Evie came over and said, "Barbara, I want you to meet my other star." And I said, I can't leave. Irwin's doing, you know, he said, don't worry about it. She went over and talked to somebody. Evie had been around since the 40s. She knew everybody. And I said, okay. She took my hand, took me on the set. This set was pitch black. And in the middle was this little island of light with the cameraman, the hairdresser, Jean-Louis, who did the costume, and then a little dressing room. And Marilyn walked out and stood in front of the light, and they took a picture of her costume. She turned this way, that way, you know. And as she came out, Evie grabbed my hand and dragged me over and said, Marilyn, I want you to meet my other star." Oh, God. She was the most beautiful thing I have ever seen in my life. She glowed. She really and truly did. She was very sweet too, to talk to. Very, just exactly how she was on screen was how she was in person. I get chills when I think about her because she was just so lovely.
Mm-hmm. Have you found it difficult because you got your name because your agent said you need to change Huffman, it sounds like a doctor, and you look so innocent, we're going to call you Eden, like the garden, yes?
Yeah.
And you have always remained sincere, polite, honest, kind.
Oh, yeah? Really?
Yeah, really? That's your reputation.
I'm so sure about that.
That's your reputation. So, is it hard in Hollywood to do that nowadays?
I don't think so. I think being true to yourself is the first rule of being a good actor. Mm. If you can be true to yourself, then you'll be true to your characters. I'll digress a little and let you know what my very first experience in Hollywood, I think it was in the book. Yeah. When I came down to LA, I couldn't drive. I didn't know how to drive because we don't need cars in San Francisco. There's a wonderful system of transportation. So my uncle, I was staying with my aunt and uncle. You see, I didn't hop very far from the nest. I went to relatives in LA. I didn't go to New York. I had an interview at Warner Brothers with the head of casting at Warner Brothers. And my uncle drove me there. And the man, I walked in and I sat in this big, very fancy office. And I sat in a very large chair, bigger than this one, holding my white gloves. And took my glasses off. That's what I did. And he started to talk. And all he did was be negative. He said, you know, you're a very nice, sweet girl from a good family in San Francisco. She said, go home. Marry the guy at home. He said, you really don't belong here. He said, you know what they want? Big breasts, tits, is what he said. But to me, it shocked the heck out of me at the time. He said, look, and he showed me a picture of his daughter and said, this is what they want, big, you know. And I was shocked and teary-eyed. What was the expression? Oh, you're not studio material. That's it, you're not studio material. And I went out in tears, of course, not in front of him, but my poor uncle. And I got home and I thought, well, you know what? He didn't ask to hear me sing. He didn't hear me read. He didn't ask what my background was, how many plays I'd done, or whether I was a member of Actors Equity at that time. I said, how can he judge all this, you know, on just my outside? And I thought, well, I'll be a character actress then. So I didn't go home, I stayed. But the interesting thing about that is, about, I'd say, 10 months later, I had met the coach, acting coach at Warner Brothers, and he said, come and join the classes. And I said, I'm not under contract. Won't they kick me off? And he said, no, come to classes at Warner Brothers. And one day, I was walking, and I heard someone say, hey, you! And I just kept walking, because I knew I didn't belong there. I didn't want anybody to know I was there. Hey, you in the yellow pants. I had yellow slacks on. And I turned around, and it was that man, the head of casting. And he said, yeah, you, are you going up to class? And I said, yes. He said, are you under contract here? I said, no. He said, we're going to test you. Same man that told me to go home. And that I wasn't pretty. And didn't, the same man. So I think we should always remember that about, you be true to yourself. You know what you are, and you know what you can do. It may be difficult to do it, but you'll get through it if you do it enough.
Your mother used to say, rise above it.
Rise above it. Well, she said that when I came home one day. I think I was in the 1st or 2nd grade, and some kid had really knocked my clock. And I was crying, and I want to go back and kill him, And she said, no, Barbara, we don't do that. Rise above it. Later, I looked at her, I think, when she was living with me later in life, and I said, Mommy, you remember telling me to rise above it when I was like 7 years old? She roared.
But it's been a motto.
Yes, it has, yeah.
Life.
Yeah.
Any favorite stories you have about doing a favorite role?
I think one of my most favorite roles was something I did on a Dr. Kildare. I don't know if you know Dr. Kildare. Yeah. First of all, he's a fabulous actor. And the part was so well written. It was a Southern girl who's out for a rich husband. And and why not, even if he's older, and she's a nurse in a hospital. It was fun. It was a fun part. Yeah.
And you're still working today?
Yes, I like to work.
You just like to work?
Whenever they want me. I'm a little long in the tooth now, It's
I don't know.
yes, I'm doing, well, I was at the New Theater in Overland Park. Yay! Is Kathy there?
Yes,
Hi, Kathy. Kathy was with me in Social Security. And I'll do it again this year in Florida, yeah. And, and I'm doing a public service commercial for the Postal Department Tuesday. And then, of course, the thing that I don't know the name of. In Chicago, I'm doing something. Speaking.
I thought maybe we'd open it up to some questions, if you don't mind.
No, I don't mind.
Yeah? Some questions for Barbara. Yeah.
So, what's your favorite episode of I Dream of Jeanie that you've done? I know there's a lot of good ones. I love the show. So.
It's when you do that many, you don't have a favorite. And I loved doing the wedding show, although I knew that was the end. She couldn't marry him. Come on. They weren't being honest about this. She's an entity. She shouldn't marry the human. You can't do that. Mixed breeds. But it was a fun part to play because I could do the mirror and I couldn't see myself in the mirror thing and all.
That was, you had to do the sort of like the walk of
and
the
robot.
mannequin, the robot. Yeah.
Yeah. It was a fun thing to do. Yeah.
Tell us about that first episode, the pilot.
Oh, cold.
Yeah.
Woo. Yeah, that was out at in Malibu, and it was winter, of course. They always, whenever when I was starting, I would do a little modeling, not much because I'm very short, but I do bathing suit modeling, and it would always be in winter, always when you're freezing cold, and we did the pilot out there at the beach. I think it was my first time I ever tasted brandy, because one of the truck drivers said, "Here, Barbara, have some of this." It's really cold. Woo. Yeah.
But it was, did you know? Did you know it was going to take off?
No, I didn't.
No?
I didn't. I didn't think that way, mainly because I would take jobs as they came, and I'd finish them. I said, that's that, okay, on to the next one, that kind of thing. Larry Hagman, by the way, said, it's going to sell.
Yeah.
Just like that. He knew. And he was pretty good. He was smart. He's the one that got me my overtime.
Really?
We were at the beginning of the show, someone said, be sure and keep track of your overtime. And write it down. So I did. I wrote down the time I went in, the time we broke for lunch, the time we came back from lunch, when we went home at night. I did that for 3 years. I did it. And I finally realized I hadn't received any overtime when I heard Larry saying, "Oh, look at this! I've got," and he had this check for $5,000 or something. I said, "How? What? I've put in more hours than you. I haven't had any overtime." He said, "Well, you better ask him for it." So I did. I had to get a lawyer who happened to be a friend. But it was really, really bad. I mean, I couldn't believe they were always computing it. And then one of them came to Joe Tabak, was my friend, who was, thank God he was my friend, he didn't charge me for it, and said, "We don't understand it. Her books are exactly what we have." And then Joe said, "Well, then why is there a question about it?" And he came back and told me that. And I was one day sitting in the makeup room, and I started thinking about it, and they were doing my face, and one tear would come down, then another tear. These were tears of anger, I'll tell you, sitting there. And I looked at the makeup artist and said, "You know, I'm sick. Never done anything like this in my life." He said, "You sick, Barbara? Can I get you something?" Well, I said, "No, you can get me my overtime check." He said, "Oh," by then everyone knew. Everyone on the crew knew. Everybody knew what was going on. He said, "Oh, okay." So he called down to our assistant AD, assistant director, and said, "Barbara's sick. She needs her overtime check." and the AD who knew said, "Okay." And then he called the head of the studio, who called me on the makeup room and said, Barbara, believe me, we're going to get you your check." I said, "I'll be here." He said, no, honey, don't you believe me?" I said, "No," when I hung up on him. So they sent a check for half. I got half of it up there. After that, it was settled. But it's just the silly things that happen. Oh, my goodness.
What do you think about, I want to go back to I Dream of Jeanie, the belly button question, and the smoke question. The smoke can't go in his bedroom.
No.
It has to come back out. The censors were
Yeah.
kind of rigid on this show.
Only after about the third year.
Uh-huh.
They hadn't paid any attention to us. Before that, it was just fine. The pantaloons were beautifully designed. They were sheer. That was a no-no later. My belly button would peek out every once in a while if I'd lift my arms up or do something physical. Nobody thought anything of it. But my friend, George Slaughter, who produced Laugh In, said he wanted to premiere Barbara's navel on television. The minute he said that, he told me, he said, "I have never seen so many suits, sitting around an oak table talking about someone's belly button like that. And just say, I don't know, do the belly button or not? No. So they decided, no, I would not premiere my navel on Laugh-In. But after that, they were very, very careful. Yes, we had to line the pantaloons. The smoke could not stay in my master's bedroom. It had to come out under the door. The bottle could never be in the bedroom. Never. Yes.
Now, what do you think about television today?
Well, I think there's some really good television on today. Really good. I don't know, you know, there are so many programs, and we used to just have what, 4
stations.
stations, and now 50 something, so you don't really know what you're going to get. You can get some pretty interesting stuff.
Do you watch television?
I do.
Mm-hmm.
I do. I read mostly though, but yeah, well, sure. We usually start out with Jeopardy. Then John goes in and watches his sports. And I, depending upon what's on, you know, I like Downton Abbey, of course, everybody does, and Game of Thrones, and I like NCIS. I've always liked NCIS.
Ever done an episode?
No. You know, those are the kinds of things I like, yeah.
Is there anything that you still want to do?
Anything good, anything, anything well written with a director who's wonderful, yeah, sure, yeah.
Yes, Jen.
I'm curious, you know, with the sexism you're describing from the 50s and 60s and so forth, and I'm wondering to what extent you feel that it still exists, and if so, how do you go about mentoring young women in Hollywood today in regard to dealing with sexism?
That's an interesting question, because I think most young women today are better equipped to handle it. They're much more savvy. And a lot of it, I think, is because of all the television they've seen. I don't know. I wouldn't know what to say or how to deal with it, because every case is different. Every experience you have with people is different. I think it would be the same in any business. Again, be true to yourself and do what you think is comfortable for you. What's comfortable for one woman would not be comfortable for another. So I don't know. I think women are still underpaid. They don't get paid as much as the men. There may be a few that do, but not many. And our longevity isn't there either, you know. So it's you just do what you can do. That's all. Rise above it.
Yeah.
You said you started out singing, and I was just curious if you still do any singing engagements, and if so, if we could hear a taste.
No, I don't. It's, you know, I'm sure, as you know, you sound like you're a singer. Right? Yes. Singing is, I don't know, my teacher at the conservatory told me it's like carrying a grand piano around. If you're going to sing, you don't catch colds. When I was in Vegas, I never went out of my room. I had those vaporizers on constantly for my throat, because when I was headlining there, you did 2 shows a night, 7 nights a week for 3 weeks. So I was talking like this, or not talking at all during the day. All I'd do would have my hot tea with honey and do my show and then go to bed. So it's a commitment. It is a commitment. At one time, I'm remembering at the White House, I was lucky enough to be there to, I emceed the Christmas tree lighting. And one of the acts, if I can call her an act, was this lovely soprano from the Met. And the rest of us, of course, were cold, and it was winter, of course, and snowing, of course. And she had rows and rows of things and a fur coat on and gloves and up to here like this, and I thought, poor thing, poor thing. And I said, are you all right? And she said, oh, yes, we have to be careful, we have to be careful. And she's right. You're always on guard. I got a little tired of that, even though I wasn't, in the Met, but even so, you have to function. Yeah. Anything else?
Yeah.
Tell the story about the lion.
I was
Larry
going to ask
Hagman,
about that. So, yes.
That's my favorite.
I think everybody's heard that.
That's a good one.
Okay. We did, we had a scene. By the way, the first 13 shows of Genie, I was pregnant. And during this first 13 group, we had a lion. I blinked a lion, and my master thought it was going to be a puppy, but it was a lion. So I had worked with a lion at Fox in a film, and I knew that you must make friends with a lion. A male lion will not be aggressive because he's lazy. If he's well fed, he's lazy. But he's big enough to do a lot of damage. Just by rolling over, he could break your leg. So you do, and he has to know you like any animal. So when the lion was on the set, I went into Larry, and I said, Larry, we have to go over and make friends with the lion. And Larry looked at me and said, I'm not going to make any friends with any GD lion, and walked away. And I thought, well, okay. So I went over and I made friends with the lion. I scratched his nose and let him smell my hand and fed him some raw meat. And then I rehearsed with him because I had to blink him in. And he came over the back of the sofa. I was to sit here, Larry was here, and the lion was to come over. And they put this little plastic bowl of raw meat right here beside me. And the lion would come over and eat the meat, and he'd look around. He was happy. Yeah, he was just really happy. And then Larry came in. And Larry sat down, and we had our scene, and I blinked, and we froze. We had to freeze. It was stop camera to bring the lion in, and we let him eat his meat, and they said 1, 2, 3, action, and I moved my arms. The lion looked over at Larry and went, growl! Like, huge growl. Larry, he was gone. I don't blame him. But not only was he gone, every single man on that set was gone. They broke the camera. It was on the ground. And I had a lion that came over the back of the sofa, put his head in my lap, and purred. It happened so fast. I mean, it's just boom, and ooh, ooh, it's like that. Just beautiful.
Tell us about your two Irwin Allen films.
Well-
I love Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea, by the way.
Did you?
Yeah.
Yeah, Joan Fontaine.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Walter Pidgeon.
Walter Pidgeon, Peter
Lorre.
Lorre, my love. Peter Lorre was one of the nicest, darlingest people I've ever worked with. He's, if you ask me who's my favorite, Peter Lorre. He's my favorite. Yes, I'd have lunch with him every day on that film.
And he would never let you pay.
Never, never. In fact, at one time I went to the guy in charge of the commissary and I said, look, I'm paying for this, just don't say anything until it's all done. He said, he's not going to like that. He's not going to like that. I said, just this time, just that. Well, it was an uproar. I mean, he just had a fit over it. So I never paid. No, I never did. Never did. He would tell me and I will tell you, which you probably already know, but at the time I didn't. He said, always sign your own checks. And I said, oh? He said, yes, don't let anyone else sign your checks. He said, you can have an accountant, but don't let them have power of attorney. He had trusted a very good friend, and he was wiped out. He had no money. And he told me, he said, you know, look at me. He said, I shouldn't have to work now. But he said, I trusted, and you can't do that. It's sad, yeah.
If I have to ask, if there was an epic battle between Samantha from Bewitched and Jeanie, who do you think would win?
I haven't a clue, but I will tell you a funny story. That reminds me. Sally, the flying nun.
Sally Fields.
Sally Fields at that time, and Elizabeth Montgomery and myself. We had the makeup room all together.
Oh.
And I was studying for, I don't know if it was my first act in Vegas or what, but I didn't have a lot of time to learn 12 songs and the choreography. So I tried to do it while my makeup was on. I'd have my tape recorder and I'd be singing the songs, you know, around and getting the lyrics down. And someone told me, I didn't hear her say this, but Sally was being interviewed. And but first, suddenly I was in my own little cubicle. I realized, I get it all by myself here. Yeah. And they said, yes. I said, that's nice. I didn't think anything of it. Sally was being interviewed, and they said, what was the most taxing thing for you when you were doing the flying nun? She said, I guess it was Barbara Eden singing full blast at 6 a.m. in the morning. That was really bad. I didn't even think about it. I was just focused, on learning.
Was there any rivalry between the shows, Bewitched and
If there
I Dream of
was,
Jeanie?
I didn't have it. I didn't own the show, so I didn't have that interest. I didn't care.
What did you have to do around the show? What kind of publicity things and?
Well,
I know you went to NASA.
Oh, yes. Oh, gosh, yes, several times. Several times, and that was thrilling. The astronauts all trained there. They had to learn how to fly. Many of them were scientists, and they had never flown a plane. And they all had their own little jet that they would go from Houston or Florida. And we, at one time, they brought Larry, Bill, Dr. Bellows, and myself into this room, and these men filed in, and they were all in turtleneck sweaters and gray trousers. And we were introduced to each and every one of them, and they said, someday one of these men will walk on the moon. And it was, at that time, it was just something you didn't think was possible. But sure enough, they did. They did it, yeah. And then later, of course, I think you're thinking about the Houston.
Yes,
when we were
I am.
visiting
Yeah.
NASA in Houston, we were told to stay on the walkway up above where all the astronauts were training. We saw them in the water because they used the water for outer space. And we were said, do not leave this and do not leave your guide. So I was standing there with Sidney Sheldon and Larry and Bill and Gene Cernan was down below, and he said, hey, Barbara. I had done a Bob Hope show.
I wanted to talk
Yeah,
about that.
I was singing, and the three astronauts were on the show with me. So Gene looked up and said, Barbara, come on down, come on down. I said, I can't, because I can't get off the walkway. Come on down. And our guide came over and said, if he says come down, you go down. So I did go down, and he said, come on, come on. He put me in the capsule, the mock-up, and he said, okay, now, you're going to land on the moon. Well, I crashed, It wasn't fair. He didn't show me how, and there are no windows, and windows are like that. You can't see what you're doing.
Wow. Tell us about USO shows and Bob Hope and.
Well, I only did one USO show
Okay.
with him because most of the time when I was doing Jeanie, he would go at Christmas and I wouldn't leave my son. But later I took Matthew with me and we went to the Persian Gulf. And that was exciting. That was exciting. And Bob at the time was he was well into his 80s, close to 90. I don't know how he did it, but boy, they loved him. They just loved him. And he'd walk out. We would helicopter from ship to ship, and then sometimes they'd bring the men in on the smaller ships, and they'd come to the big. He spent the night on the Midway, you know, and no sleep, but it was wonderful.
What was it like performing for that large a group of men?
It was great. They're so thankful. They're so grateful for any kind of entertainment, and they loved Bob. It's interesting, though. You know, it wasn't always on a stage. You'd be on the deck, and in my Bob Mackie beads, you know, which really should be lit. It's not. It's kind of naked looking without the lights and the. So you have to kind of rise above that and do your song.
Yeah.
Have you thought about, or do you teach at all?
Where are you? Oh, me?
Yeah. Do you teach at all, or do you
No.
think about teaching, or
No.
have a desire to kind of communicate something to students?
I don't think so. I think I would like to coach. I would enjoy coaching someone or a group of people, but I'm not sure I'm qualified to teach. I can subjectively tell you what I've done and how I've dealt with things, but that one book, that Michael Redgrave book, God, I wish it was still in print, because it's something all actors should read, I think. He just cuts out all the baloney and gets right down to it, the practicality and what to do, and, you know, each his own way. You know, there are many roads. We each have to find our own road to truth, or to how we. You can do just so many improvs, but that's not going to work when you get on the stage. You have to leave the improvs back there and learn your lines and make them your own. And that's not always easy.
Yeah.
I have a question for you. Through your experience, what is some advice you would give to a young actor wanting to get into film and wanting to go to LA, but not necessarily having representation over there? What is just some advice, like, way to start out doing that, possibly?
The most difficult thing in the world is going into a town when you don't know anyone, as I did, actually. It took me a long time to get an actor. I mean, to get an agent. You need an agent. You need somebody to represent you. It would help if you had a mentor. If you don't have a mentor, then you know what? You find acting classes. You find people who have the interest that you have. I was lucky enough to live at the Studio Club, which at that time was for women aspiring actresses and women writers in film. It no longer exists, but it's important to attach yourself to an acting company. There's one called the Groundlings in LA. It's very good. But through them, you hear through other actors, you hear what they're doing, where the agents are, who is liable to see you. My real break came when I was at the Laguna Theater doing Voice of the Turtle, and someone from Fox just happened to come to see the leading man, not me. But I got good reviews, probably the last ones I ever had, but they were really good, and so that's why I was tested. But I had been in LA for a couple of years before that happened, and I was working though. I was working. It's interesting to me sometimes that you really have to be willing to work hard. A lot of people think that, oh, I'll go, and sometimes it works for them for a while. I'll do nothing, you know, I'm a pretty face, and I can do this, and I can do that, and it works for a while. But you really have to have the sore feet, sore back, and know you're working, because that's really what it's all about. It's hanging in there and working. Finding people in your own field. I wish I knew someone, I don't. But the Groundling's a good place to try. You know, try out for them, and then, and if not them, then some acting group. Try to do some play, little play somewhere, and find an agent, because you need a representative. You don't. It's hard without one.
Yeah.
Out of your entire acting, or just your career in general, what is your most proud moment? The one that you hold above everything else that you know it's gonna last for you for the rest of your life?
Oh, I don't think it's happened yet. I really don't. I'm very proud of Jeanie. I like her. I like her a lot. She's easy to live with and work on. I guess that's what I should be proud of. Because she's what made me a household name, you know. But I liked Harper Valley PTA too.
Stella?
Stella, yeah. Yeah, I liked her. She was free and fun and
Sassy.
yeah, sassy. So I can't. When it happens, I'll let you know.
I thought it was when they were together, Barbara, but that's all right.
Well,
That's okay. That's all right.
it's the next time. You know, I think I'm going to answer a question that was asked a few questions back about parts that I've enjoyed and like. You know, do you know a play called Love Letters?
Mm-hmm. Oh,
I
with Larry.
love doing that.
You did it with Larry, didn't you?
I did it with Larry. I am doing it now with Hal Linden, and you asked me what I was doing. I'm going to do it next year with Hal.
Uh-huh.
But that absolutely, for pure joy for me as an actress, is that part. I love it. What better to take from a little child to an old lady? I mean, what an arc. I love it, love it, love it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, Michael.
I would just, as actors and performers, we all try to model parts of our performance after other performers. Like I try to, you know, emulate Dustin Hoffman sometimes. I was wondering if there's a performer that you've often looked up to or tried to find a performance that you liked that inspired you.
Well, I loved Vivien Leigh. I really did. She really had a broad, you know, she could do lots of stuff. And I loved it when I was younger. But I never tried to emulate her. You have to emulate yourself. Yeah.
What was your favorite Vivien Leigh movie?
My favorite what?
Vivien Leigh movie.
Oh, wow. I like them all, but you know what? I think I really appreciated her the most as Cleopatra, because then I saw Elizabeth Taylor do Cleopatra, and I thought, wow, she, you know, Vivien Leigh understood exactly what that was, the dynamics of the thing, and Elizabeth didn't. Sorry.
Do you think there will be an I Dream of Jeanie movie? And will you finally get to play Jeannie's mother?
Grandmother about now. Jeez. I don't know. Sony has high hopes. They constantly have high hopes. They are constantly calling my manager, actually, and talking about it, but they never seem to do it. And they have spent copious amounts of money on scripts.
Yeah.
So, I don't know.
Would you do it?
Of course.
Yeah. Yeah.
What actor would turn down a job?
Yeah.
Goodness sake.
All right, Haley, finally.
I have a question. You said that an actor has many different roads to truth and that you read Michael's book as your inspiration. What other acting teachers did you study and what do you still use today?
Oh, today?
Yeah.
I don't know any acting teachers today. I really don't.
But when you were working on the show, how did you as an actor work? What was some of your processes beyond just going home and looking at your lines?
Now, which part? You mean Jeanie?
Yeah.
Well, with Jeanie, before I ever started it, I took into consideration that she was a fish out of water. She didn't understand anything about this century or this time and space. That she was naive but incredibly intelligent and wise, but you have to remember now, you're talking about a genie, not a human, and he was her master, and that was in her DNA. Whoever popped that cork, boy, she was going to love him. Just happened to be a really good-looking astronaut, but that was her DNA, and to help him. That's all she wanted to do, was help him. And there are other little things you do. You know, when I was doing the Marilyn Monroe part in How to Marry a Millionaire, of course, she wouldn't wear her glasses and she couldn't see. It's a part that could have been played as a stupid woman. But Marilyn didn't really play it as a stupid woman. And Loco wasn't stupid. She just simply couldn't see. She was naive. But I used, one of the little things I used for Loco was my poodle. The way my poodle would look. You know how they do? And that was Loco, because she couldn't see. So, you know, she wouldn't wear glasses, but she really scrutinized things all the time. Just as my dog did. I didn't sniff, of course. You know, my dog go around sniffing, but no, the body language and the, you know, and that helped. All kinds of stuff. You just have to pull it out of you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Barbara Eden, thank you so much for being here.
You're welcome.
Really appreciate your time. Thank you.
I enjoyed it. Thank you.